Your Majesties, thank you. Thank distinguished laureates, the Foundation, the Princesa des Asturias. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for this great honor. I feel at this moment humility and awe. And I know it's customary to express such emotions under these circumstances, but believe me, I do. I really do feel the humility and awe in this circumstance, especially to be in the company of such co-honorees, and of course, of the company of the past honorees of the Foundation, and to be standing on the soil that gave us Cervantes and Goya and Unamuno and Picasso and Lorca and Luis Buñuel, who is one of the greatest artists in the history of cinema. So how else can I feel? I take this as an honor for cinema, so I accept this award with great thanks and gratitude to all those artists who came before me and made the work that I've done possible. Because really, there's not one film or filmmaker that stands alone. We've all been in this big, great, constant conversation, dialogue, questioning, answering, provoking each other with our work across extraordinary distances, not only in space, but in time. And what is great about cinema for me is that it's always present. It's always the now. For me, a film by Luis Buñuel is more alive and up to the minute than, what do they have, these tweets? Or things, or little cell messages or whatever than we ever have on our cell phones, if you can use one. Peter Bogdanovich, the director, has also said many times that there's no such thing as an old film, there's only one you haven't seen. And today, when I see a film, what's really exciting, when I see a film by a young or a first-time filmmaker, and suddenly something happens in it and I'm taken, I'm transported by, I guess you can call it a cinematic gesture that he or she creates. It could be a juxtaposition of one or two cuts, 3 or 4 images cut together. It could be a composition. It could be a camera movement. It could be all these things mixed with music, no music, silence, I don't know. All I know is that I'm taken by it because I can tell that that filmmaker, that young person, was driven to do it that way. They had to tell this particular story in these particular images. That's what's most precious and inspiring for me, because that's how it was for me. That's how it was for me. I couldn't rest until I made that film that way. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense. And now, for young filmmakers, what a time it is for young people in the world today. What opportunity. I mean, they can make a film with anything. Again, that cell phone. You make a film with that. Films are being made with the cell phone. They're being shown everywhere. You have all the tools, you know. There's no more excuses. If you have the energy, you can go out and do it. And the same with film history. Most of film history, pretty much every decade of the 100 years, 115 years of film, every decade, and almost all the countries of the world are now accessible. And believe me, it was not that way in the 1950s. It really wasn't. But despite all these opportunities, I have great concern. I'm very concerned about cinema's past, yes, but really, really more concerned about the future of it. And I know that in the practicality of society, art is very fragile. It's treated often as if it's not really essential to life. There's always somebody trying to cut the art or the artist down to size. You know, they come up with, it's a luxury, it's a diversion. But art is resilient. And when the dust settles, the art will be there, still standing, still present, devoid of the popular influence and the fashion of the time in which it was made. Great art works out of context. I know this. It stands on its own. It's still present. And so ultimately then is the need to create new work in response to that work. However, the art is affected by the climate in which it's created. And I'm very concerned about that climate around cinema today. On the one hand, we've always had denigrating cinema to a certain extent, belittling it, marginalizing it. It's either just escapist, or if it is worthwhile, it's only worthwhile because it delivers an issue or a message. And on the other hand, everywhere you look, today you have 24 hours straight, moving images all the time, sound and picture, poured into our lives. And I know that cinema itself is composed of moving images, but cinema has now become just one current in a great gushing torrent of moving images. And they have what they call a menu. I mean, we all know this. So you have a commercial, there's an episode of a TV series, there's a video of a cat or a dog or some kind of animal, instruction videos, a film by Almodovar, reality TV, David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia, and so on. It all becomes what they call now content. It's a word I really dislike. And serious discussion of cinema, critical judgment, particularly in my country, has been cut off at the knees. Now that cinema is being so constantly devalued, and at the same time, technology allows anyone to make a film anytime, anywhere, what does that mean for young people? They may need to express themselves on film through the moving image, but what kind of inspiration are they getting with this atmosphere? I mean, what will be the result? Are the values of our world being eroded so we can't be sure if they're being inspired by art and some search for truth, or just for commerce? Where do they go for that valuable inspiration? Who's supporting the art and the artists? And more importantly, the impulse to create art that's going to stand on its own. How do we transform a poisonous climate around us to one in which a young artist can follow the light within them, that spark, that soul, the duende? It is so vital and important that we hold art in a place of honor and esteem in our culture, which you are doing here. It's even more important to honor freedom of choice, thought, and action that leads to art being created, to give the young people the confidence and the ability to create their own path, their own voice through life, so they can see through all the slogans and salesmanship and hucksterism, so they can see all the way to their own inner light. And that might lead to great art being created, which will enrich our future generations. I think that's where the real fight begins for art, the fight for the spirit. And of course, we have Cervantes and Quixote, and he fought against the windmills. And it's been said by Bread that the windmills may have represented the technology of his day. And so in order to preserve the spirit, he fought against that technology. And with that image in mind, one of the great lasting images of our civilization, which comes from here, we can find our way to conquering our technology so that artists will come to use that technology rather than the other way around, where the technology uses the artist. So I accept this award in the name of freedom and revelation, the freedom to find quiet and focus in order to see through all these absurd categories they have now, trivial judgments, rating systems, fashionable pronouncements, to see all the way through to the revelation of what can't be named, but only felt, and for those of us who find the grace expressed in art. I thank you.